Hello bakers, welcome to this demonstration from me, Rachel, with Baking in Real Life. I'm going to show you how to do these micro stripes on a cake. If you're unsure of how we got to this point, go ahead and click the link in the description, and that's going to show you kind of a fast-forwarded video of how we got here. Basically, we're starting with a cooled and crumb-coated cake. It has been in the fridge overnight. We're going to go ahead and we're going to frost. We're going to use the comb to create the stripes, and then we're going to fill it and make sure we scrape away for nice, clean, sharp lines in our cake. So here we go. If you have seen in some of my other videos, you will know I don't typically use a piping bag to frost, but in this case, because I want to make sure I'm getting a really thick layer, you can see how thick that is. It's at least a quarter of an inch, probably closer to a half of an inch. I did in this case. Now, that doesn't mean you have to, but I do recommend it just to make sure you have a really thick base to work with because you are scraping away so much frosting. Continuing on, just go ahead and if you're doing the whole cake, frost the whole cake. As you saw, I only did half of the cake because that's what I was doing. And once you get it all piped on like this, then we'll go ahead and scrape away just to make this even and smooth. Fill any lines that are missing or any areas, and just keep going until it is all the way done. One thing to remember is you do want to have a good amount right here at this seam because you are still creating a top stripe. So as you're scraping away, don't level off the top of your cake quite yet. Scrape your side gently just to get everything smooth and even, and leave that top rim intact. You want it there because you want to decide where to end your striping, and if you take it away now, it could mess up how the stripe finishes in the end. So once you get this scraped and smooth, then you will be ready to go ahead and start using your comb. As you can see, I'm just finishing up. I always like to make at least one pass in the opposite direction to make sure that everything is settling and I'm not actually scraping away very much, rather just keeping it smooth and even. Now is the time to go ahead and switch sides or pull out your comb scraper, and we want to do a few passes here with this comb. As you can see that we need to kind of, you don't have to put too much pressure or feel like you need to dig in, but you can make a first very gentle pass as you can see, and as you keep passing through and pulling it across gently, you'll want to clean your scraper at least every half a cake, if not more. And as you can see here, I make quite a few just gentle passes, working the frosting to be level on the upper part and smooth on the lower part. Really, we want to make sure that upper part doesn't have kind of like these little rough edges or anything, because it's going to attract the color and you're going to have a bunch of color stuck in there. So I did make a few passes as you can see, and I do go here in shorter bursts and clean it off, and then I also start to go in the other direction just to smooth things out. You'll get to the point where you're not pulling a lot of buttercream anymore and you'll see less and less coming, which is a very good sign. And you can just track and see here, all right, is there a certain area that needs to be worked more? And you can, put a little more pressure as I start to do here to get my top more even. And in those short bursts again to get it nice and clean. Now, this doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to have a pretty smooth upper level, that top higher part, so that as you scrape away in the next step, you're not having any frosting stuck in those lines. So once you get to this point and you are satisfied with where it is, then go ahead and you're going to want to put it in the freezer. You want it to be really hard for the next step. So get it to a point where you feel comfortable and then pop it in the freezer. As you begin your colored frosting, you want to fill it with the tip similar to the size of the stripe. You don't have to overfill or feel like you need to do a ton. Try to work quick. If you have to go back like I just did here and fill some spots in, that is fine. You will actually still be very surprised at how much of the color gets scraped away, even when you don't feel like you're putting very much in. I was almost nervous that this wasn't enough, and it definitely ended up being plenty of frosting. Now remember, as you're going through and putting all of this fresh frosting in, it is going to harden, it is going to get firm. Don't be nervous about it. Don't be afraid about it. We're going to make several passes to make sure that we get it settled in the creases, but also scraped away. So keep going through. And again, if you're not doing a micro stripe, you're just doing a regular, this might be a little bit quicker for you. But if not, just take your time and go through. This is all real time. I did not speed it up because I wanted you to see just, what the process is really like, that it is kind of time consuming, and that it may take you a few minutes to really get this part done. The colored frosting is a bit softer than what I had used for the base. As you can see, it's coming out pretty easily here. And I have this, I would say, medium soft consistency. It's about what I would use for a font, or if I was writing, it would be that softer consistency. If it's too stiff, then you may have trouble manipulating it. So just consider that you may need to have different consistencies as you do this cake, that this colored frosting may be a thinner consistency than the base or the filling. You want it pretty soft, almost like tub frosting. I did want to go a little up close here so you could just get a better view and see how this is going, how much is really sticking out there at the edge. It's really not a lot. It's not a ton above our indentation line, and as we fill it, it's just smoothly going in. I just want to show you up close and kind of also fast forward you closer to the end. If you need to ever pause during this, go for it. That way you're not spending the full amount of time that I spent doing this as well. I want you to see the detail, but I also don't want to keep you forever as I pipe all of these lines. All right, we're ready to scrape. So get the flat edge ready and just pull it across. You can see there's a bit of resistance here. It's because the frosting is getting hard. Do not be scared when you see this disaster. You might have to put a little bit of force into it because, again, this is now basically frozen frosting. And wipe away your bench scraper after your passes, especially if you're gathering quite a bit of frosting. And that way, every pass, it's not going to be smearing colors into other color blocks where it shouldn't be. And like you can see, I'm putting a good amount of force to really scrape away. And it does take several passes, so do not be discouraged. If you need to start working in smaller sections, as you see here, I start lifting, I go in smaller sections, and I'm putting quite a bit of pressure to really get that frosting to lift, and you can start to see my white stripes coming through underneath, which is what you want. So it's totally okay to not be making single passes. It's okay to work in an area if you need to, and then do your final passes at the end. After a few more passes, you can see here it's starting to get quite a bit clearer. There is still, and you can see there's kind of like this blur, and the lines aren't quite crisp yet. Definitely, again, make sure you're making a pass both ways, but do not give up as you see your lines maybe doing this. You actually want to keep scraping, keep scraping. It's totally a process. You're taking off like a millimeter at a time, and so it's going to take a while, but do not give up if you see these lines that look blurred or there's still colored on your understriping. Don't give up. Keep scraping away, and you're going to see it as I continue to scrape. I'm still pulling away frosting. I'm beginning to now start to pull away some of the white frosting, and that's actually okay. Don't be nervous if you're pulling at your under frosting, and you can start to see how much better it's looking and will continue to get as you scrape, scrape, scrape away. Because we may not naturally hold even pressure on our scraper, you can see here that as this comes around and I scrape away, there's quite a bit more there in the center and at the bottom. Those purple lines were giving me some trouble, and I really was trying to make sure that I was getting enough pressure in the areas that needed it. So I started to modify and put quite a bit more pressure at the bottom just for this case because I needed to scrape away and continue to clean up those lines. This was about 7 or 8 more passes from the last clip that I just showed you, and I still have a few more passes to come because I really want to clear those up, and it just comes through scraping. My white lines ended up completely clear, and as you can see when I scrape here, I'm taking away equal amounts of colored and white because I want all of that to be gone. I have to keep going, and it's not gonna hurt the cake. That was a very frozen area. I'm basically just shaving off very thin frozen parts of that frosting. This is the best way to do it, so don't give up and don't feel discouraged, especially if your colors are bleeding. You can see how much better it's getting now. Here is my very final pass. You can see how much better all of those stripes are looking, and I kind of slice away and get just that bit of perfection here at the end. Now there's, a couple very little purple spots. I don't remember if I went back, but I don't think I did any more passes. Now remember how we said we didn't want to clear the top yet? If you're doing a full stripe, I'm not saying you're doing what I'm doing here with a half and half. If you're doing a full stripe, you're going to have to go ahead and clear that top area to make it now the same size of a stripe as the rest of your stripes. So as you finish, if you're doing a full cake, just finish coming around, have your seam, do your final passes, and then you can use your offset spatula or you can use your bench scraper to go ahead and level off your top lip to make it even with everything else. All right, that is it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them for you. I know I'm kind of doing whatever design here. This was for a customer. So there's a little difference between, what I'm doing for them and what you would want to do. Just comment below. I'm happy to answer questions for you, go over recipes, consistencies, techniques, troubleshooting if you're having any problems with this. So just let me know, and I am happy to help. That's why I am here. I am your baking coach. So I hope you have an awesome day and enjoy this tutorial.